Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Shamshir Sound video. Today we're going to be looking at Ummet Ozcan's synthesizer that he released a couple of months ago, which is called Genesis Pro. Now there's been a lot of excitement and hype and anticipation for this synth to finally be released, and it was in development for over 8 years. So lo and behold, here we are, Genesis Pro. This is the sound that comes with the synth.
I am Genesis, virtual hybrid synthesizer.
Really cool. So that will come up when you guys first launch Genesis Pro. Now with this video, I'm going to be very critical. Now, even though it's a bargain, guys, it's only €1 he's charging for this synth. I ended up paying like $1.96 Canadian. I'm still going to be critical because I still got to talk about the pros and the cons and how it's used by the average user, enthusiasts, sound designers, everything. And Ummet Ozcan is a legend. He makes some insanely good big room music and just really dope dance music. From what I recall, my memory, I think he used a lot of Silent One in the past, so this might have a lot of inspiration from Silent One. It may not. I've been using this the past couple of days, just experimenting. I haven't been using it as my main synth. You guys know, if you've watched my videos, I'm in love with Massive, not X. I love Massive, and we're gonna compare it and see like how it stacks up, and we're gonna talk about all the pros and cons that I've written down, some nice bullet point tips. Before we go into that, let's just talk about some of the sounds that ship with the synthesizer. So the factory bank, as we can see here, is broken down: leads, plucked, bass, keys, pads, sequences, voices. You can also switch to like a single mode to go through different presets. And let me just tell you guys, the presets are insanely good. So that's my first really highlight, tip number one. The first thing is really the rich factory sounds. Insanely good, I gotta say. And you guys gotta hear it to believe it. So here's one, Trance Legacy. The insane thing, and these sounds are huge, massive, very harmonically rich, and my hat goes off to Ummet. Even this one that I'm about to hit, River Lead, you guys will recognize this. I think this is like one of those old school sounds, maybe Afrojack style. So there's huge potential for you guys to put this into like your future house track, electro house, big room, right off the bat. The sound bank is insane. And it's categorized, so you have like plucked sounds, you have bass, even the bass are really great. And to my surprise, even the keys sound really cool. Insane. This one the other day, Transylvania, was like, just blew me away. So there's some really good variety, as my point is, with this synth, from keys to pads to sequences, voices, and it's really dope. I think there's going to be a lot of potential using this, whether it's the forefront of your mix or in the background of the mix. And so that's one thing, is really good rich factory sounds. And if you guys noticed, I'm using a tool here that's called Audition Mode, which I really love. That's my second pro for Genesis Pro, is the Audition. So when you guys click on a sound, for instance, let's say lead Trance Legacy, of course you can play on your keyboard or MIDI keyboard. But the great thing is that you guys, if you're tweaking the sound and you don't want to loop a pattern, the great thing you can do is just turn on Audition. And what that does, I'll unmute the sound. what that does is that it just starts playing back like a custom rhythm or something in accordance with the sound. It doesn't work, I found, with some of the stuff. For instance, when I went to sequences and I turned on Audition, it wasn't doing anything. So just as a heads up, but it's really dope. Let's turn this up. So notice if I press like lead dial in here and then Audition. So really cool. The third pro that I want to talk about is the X-Gen mode. So the X-Gen, let's say we go to, let's see, Oz lead, or let's just go to River lead. So let's just load it up again. So with this selected, I'm going to go ahead and go to X-Gen. Now, X-Gen is really cool. You can use this if you initialize the preset or you go to an existing preset, and X-Gen will generate a tone for you. It's kind of like randomizing, but it focuses really on the oscillator section here on the left. And I like it because you can generate a soft tone, a hard tone, or a pluck tone. So you have some options there in terms of what you want to do. So let's go ahead and Audition, but let's turn on the X-Gen. Now the plucked kind of got mangled. It wasn't playing back, and I think that's because of the modulation. Let's go ahead and initialize the preset. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this audio. If you notice when I'm clicking, menu sound off. So you can turn on and off the menu clicks. So I'm going to go ahead and menu init pre. So it was auditioning the init, the sine wave sound. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on Audition, we'll go to X-Gen and just play around with the 3 different features. So that's really cool. In moments, you can just get a cool little tone and really sick. The second module inside of here, which I'm not going to talk about too much, but you can apply effects through a template. So if you have like a cool pluck that you have here, and we want to add something like a guitar effects to it, we can do that. And what this is doing is that it runs like a template for the effects, because the effects are very feature rich. There's a lot of effects, but this will quickly run an effects template, kind of like what REFX does. REFX Nexus. So that's something that you guys gonna have to experiment with, but I like that they add that feature. The X-Gen is really sick because you guys will be able to manipulate your sound, and then maybe you're bored or you need inspiration. And I always like having a random button. It's always come in handy in synthesizers like Tone 2 Gladiator, or even Massive has it to some extent. But I'd like to see that more in synthesizers, because a lot of times we just get tired and we just want to try something, right? So the next thing I want to talk about is the Picasso mode. Now, I was struggling to get to this mode, and the mode, you get to it by doing this. So I went to single mode and you type Picasso Mode.
Picasso Mode activated.
And this is really sick because you guys can completely customize your skin. You can save the skin, you can set it as default, you guys can go through complete templates, so you can do a complete template change, which I really like. You guys are going to have tons of options to make it look how you guys want. But let's say you like the default, for instance, right? Let's just go to default. And you just want to change maybe the knobs, the color. You can do that. You can change each different type of stuff from the menu text. You turn it on and you make a change there. Let's say you want to change panel text, you can do so. Or maybe you just want to do like just the background, the skin. In any case, if you want to change everything, then you can just browse through it and change it. So you can choose different skins, but then also customize each part of that skin. So I really like that Ummet added this. This is going to give you guys a little bit more inspiration. And I tend to do this too, especially with plugins like Nexus and whatnot. Just kind of sets like a mood, you know? It's kind of setting the mood for the synthesizer, which can be beneficial when you're working with it. Makes it more pleasant to work with. The next pro that I want to talk about, let's exit the Picasso mode. Let's go ahead and go back to default. There's a lot of skins. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is user analytics, which is really cool. In the menu, if you go to, let's see here, analyze user profile, I believe. So this is really sick. What this does is that it's basically just showing you your experience. It's showing you, you know, are you tweaking it a lot? Are you a sound designer mostly? Are you tweaking presets, using presets, and just kind of gives you a breakdown of what's going on. I believe there's also, let's see here, single mode. Switch to preset browser. That's one thing I'm going to talk about as the cons, is like the navigation is kind of difficult with this. But there was also a different mode that showed like your level, beginner, and some other features that were in there. There's a lot of like occulted hidden stuff in this synth, which I find is a consequence, but we'll talk about that momentarily. The last thing I just want to touch base is that this is a hybrid synth, so you guys are going to have the ability to use like multiple oscillators, ROM loaded stuff, like a ROMpler like Nexus, how it has access to like samples. You're going to be able to just use it strictly like a normal synthesizer with phase modulation and FM. So this is going to be a hybrid, and you guys can do a variety of stuff with this. There's just too many features for me to go in depth in this video, and the manual hasn't been released yet. So briefly, there's a lot of effects. You can see distortion, amp simulator, bit reducer, crusher, phaser, flanger, ensemble, vibrato, vowel filter, EQ, delay, reverb, sidechain, and something they call the hyper filter. Now, one thing is that these don't seem to be able to be moved around in a modular fashion. They're in a serial fashion, so from top down, and then it goes this way down. And they can be turned on individually. You can have them all on. And when you're adjusting something, you'll see if the knob has something to be adjusted or some sort of UI or something, the UI will come up at that moment. So for instance, if I'm adjusting the size, you'll see the graphical interface change in accordance. So, which is cool. If you switch to something like vowel filter, you'll be able to see kind of like a little animation. And even this, if you switch gender, you can see there. So some really cool design choices there. The next thing I want to talk about is just modulation. So we do have modulation. We have two types. You can do like retrigger, free. There's different types of modulation that you can do in accordance with something called the matrix. With the matrix gives you even more modulation opportunities. There's also something that is called intelligent chord mode. So the intelligent chord mode, the intent is to be able to give you the ability to press one key and you can play out a full-blown chord. Now, from my experience, it was a little difficult to set up, and this is going to tie into some of the cons because I was like, how do I get there? And I had to watch a video again by Ummet, and I was still confused because notice this screen says multi-wave oscillator settings with the chord mode and everything. But let's say like you just adjusted the vowel filter and you're not there. It's hard to know how to come there, how to arrive on the screen because it's layered. It's dug deep inside. So, but there are different modes you can do for the chord modes. I still haven't really grasped it fully. In Ummet Ozcan's words, like I quote him, he's like, it's going to take you a year to learn this. So I think this is a synth that's going to be harder beginners and even myself, I find myself struggling to navigate around this synthesizer, which can be very frustrating. I think synthesizers that are streamlined and simple, sometimes less is more. There's a lot of options that you can do with the detune. So you can see there's like unison, 4x, 6x, voice detune, mono unison. So this synthesizer, just as a heads up, is riddled and with tons of settings. There's tons of settings that I don't even like understand right now. You know, you can change oscillator 1, 2, 3 mono, transpose of each oscillator. I don't even know what that does. Tuning, voice stealing, I don't know what that is. So there's a lot. There's a step sequencer. There's different sequencer modes where you can feed it external MIDI, or so there's just tons of stuff built in this synthesizer. Let's talk about one of the last couple things. So there are 4 ADSR envelopes. So you can see here 1 and 2, 3 and 4, indicated by the rows. So this is 1 and 2, and 3 and 4. Now there's also, there you can see there a nice little UI that you can adjust there. There's also the master section. So this is kind of like the cherry on top, the final touch before your sound going to the master. And you have a variety of stuff like stereo image, and we can see that user interface changing to show in accordance. You can also push it to the side or just leave it as it is. There's also something called the alpha knob, which the alpha knob is kind of like a one knob controls all. So you could like right click and learn on something and adjust it with the alpha knob and do, you know, adjust the detune too. So now we're adjusting 2 knobs, right click learn, and again. So the automation is done through that, the right click learn, and then you move the according knob to make the changes. So again, this is, I can appreciate levels of macro and levels of modulation, because that's what really takes a sound to the next level. Modulating is really what makes it more advanced and more sophisticated in sound. And there's a couple of other things too that I want to talk about. Is of course the price is a huge pro. It's only €1. It's like 1.2 euro. So I think he did that so that he's not going to get flooded with a bunch of scrubs just downloading it, and he's getting like DDoSed. I think that was a good choice, kind of like what they did with CSGO back in the day. And there's also dynamic link. Now I couldn't get dynamic link to work. I'm going to talk about that because dynamic link is essentially allows you to put, and this is the intent with dynamic link. Let me see if I can show you guys. So dynamic link is supposed to allow you to input a signal, whether it be your voice and you're talking into it and you trigger the synth, or a sound coming in and you trigger the synth. But I couldn't get dynamic link to work. It couldn't find Genesis Pro, and I'm going to talk about why. So this is really kind of my general wrap up of this synth. If you guys are interested in making dance music and you really want to just tweak the hell out of a sound, I think you'll find that this place is home and you will love it. For the beginner who wants to make just simple sounds, the sound bank will benefit you, but I think this is a really intimidating synth. And this is coming from someone who has used many synths. I've used like lots of synths. I'm not going to note how many or which ones I've used, but this still, after all that time, is still intimidating in terms of the complexity and how to get to something and what's going on. So now I want to talk about the cons, and the cons really, the first I want to say is that it is hard to navigate. A lot of the windows are hidden and hard to bring up unless the right knob is being tweaked. There's a lot of implicit knowledge. And what does that mean, implicit knowledge? It means there's a lot of knowledge in his head as the designer, but hard for us to navigate, and we might stumble and not know exactly what's going on. So that's one thing, is that the navigation is intimidating and difficult. The second I would say is that it's 32-bit only. So I'm running this in 32-bit FL Studio, native 32-bit. Now I could run it, and I was using it yesterday in 64-bit FL Studio bridged, but some people are experiencing some bugs. So if you would like to get full reliability, then run it in 32-bit FL. The second thing is slow load time. So when you guys open it, it does take a few seconds to fire up, at least for me. And this is on a 4770K at 4.5 gigahertz, 16 gigs DDR3, and they installed on a Samsung 860 Evo. Still taking like quite a bit of time to load up. Lastly, with that too, is couldn't get the dynamic link to work. I couldn't get it to work on 32-bit or 64-bit. There was no sort of internal sidechain link that I could do, similar to like Pro C by FabFilter. Routing it to it didn't do anything. Putting the effect on the synth didn't do anything. So I'm not sure if maybe I was doing something wrong. You guys can let me know in the comments. Maybe if it's like MIDI routing or something. But nonetheless, I couldn't get it to work. Maybe it's just my fault. There was a lot of high RAM usage. So the RAM usage for this gets quite big. To put into perspective, the RAM usage when you just first throw it into a 32-bit instance of FL, 64 will be different because I'm sure the bridge is dealing with that externally. But inside of 32-bit FL, the RAM usage like first was like around 500 megabytes. And then as I cloned each instance, it would be like 250-ish. And I compared that to a Massive synth, the 32-bit version of Massive, and it was like 63 megabytes for Massive. So it's almost 10x Massive. 6 instances of Genesis Pro inside of this FL Studio 32-bit became 2015 megabytes. So I can imagine if you guys are using a lot of instances of this, the project will take a long time to load, and you might reach your memory cap if you're using it in FL 32-bit. So really my wish list for this would be to really see, I would love to see a native 64-bit. I don't know if that's going to be a design limitation, if they can do it or not. There's no manual yet, so they say a manual is coming soon, but there's no manual, unfortunately. So for now, we're kind of just in the dark. We just got to navigate and see how things work. But that's my overview of Genesis Pro. Overall, is it worth it? Yes, it's worth it. Is it a good sounding synthesizer? Yes. Do the factory sounds sound great? Absolutely. Is there customization? Yes. I think the flaws and where it comes short are in regards to the navigation, in regards to the load times and the technical limitations. But I still think that as long as they stay true to this synth and continue to give it support, I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and I would love to see future iterations with this, with some of the nooks and crannies kind of rectified. But let me know what you guys think about this synthesizer. It's an amazing synth, and before we leave, I want to show you even like some of these sequences which even sound insane. So this here, raise your hands.
Everybody raise your hand. Kapuszanka pingala wschodzi pana.
I don't know what bug that is. What is this? I turned off Audition. What is this? Anyways, maybe it's just a bug. Let me change the preset. Is it going to continue? Okay, whatever. Anyways, I didn't want to end on that note for Genesis Pro, but ignore that. Forgive that. In any case, I think that if you guys are using this, try to bounce a lot of the stuff. In this early stage, like, I guess it can be volatile, and we just saw that. I didn't intend on that. I was like, hey, let me show you guys some sequence. Let me try opening a pad. Okay, we're back to normal, I think. Cool, nonetheless. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys made it this far, remember to hit the like button. It means a lot. And remember to hit that subscribe button. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell. I'm going to be uploading every week. Right now I am studying UX design, so most of my time is reading and a lot of studying. Just finished reading a 300-page book on the design of everyday things, so that is just an update from me, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Eat them clean food, make them gains, make some beats, and take care of yourselves, take care of your families. I will see you soon. Peace.